We have a preliminary understanding of the transmission system through previous videos. In this video, we will focus on its important parts. Crankset and crank. The number of crankset teeth, crank length, different materials, and whether the crank is hollow or not will directly affect riding experiences. 1. Detailed explanation of crankset specifications and materials. The main differences between cranksets are the number of chain rings, number of teeth, and material. Mountain bike cranksets are divided into single piece, double piece, and triple pieces. The common teeth of single piece are 34 teeth, 36 teeth, 38 teeth, 40 teeth, and 42 teeth. The common teeth of double piece are 42-24 teeth, 42-28 teeth, and 38-26 teeth. The common teeth of triple piece are 42-32-24 teeth, 44-42-22 teeth, and 48-36-26 teeth. Road bikes usually use double-piece cranksets. The common teeth are 53-42 teeth, 52-39 teeth, 53-39 teeth, 54-42 teeth, 55-42 teeth, 56-44 teeth, and 50-34 teeth. Teeth is a unit which is the number of gears in the chain ring. If you often need to climb hills or ride long distances and want to save effort, you can choose a chain ring with fewer teeth. The main materials of the crankset are steel, titanium alloy, aluminum alloy, and composite materials. Steel crankset is heavier but cheap and has good wear resistance. In contrast, the cranksets made of other materials are lighter and more expensive. Nowadays, aluminum alloy cranksets are more popular. It has good comprehensive performance. Cranks are usually divided into two types. The first type is the three-piece crank, which has two cranks and a bottom bracket. The second type is two-piece crank, which the bottom bracket is fixed on one crank. The main difference between cranks is length and material. Common lengths are 165 mm, 167.5 mm, 170 mm, 172.5 mm, 175 mm, 177.5 mm, 180 mm, etc., and common materials are steel, aluminum alloy, titanium alloy, carbon fiber, etc. The great crank generally is hollow, which can minimize weight while ensuring strength. 2. How to choose crank length. Personal physical conditions and riding habits need to be considered when choosing the crank length. Riders with a higher pedaling frequency can choose a shorter crank, and sprint riders can choose a longer crank. For the selection of length, you can refer to the following two methods. The first method is to calculate the crank length based on the leg length. The deviation range does not exceed 5 mm. Table 1 shows the relationship between crank length and leg length. The second method is to calculate the crank length according to the length of the thigh bone. The deviation range does not exceed 5 mm. Table 2 illustrates the relationship between crank length and thigh bone length. 3. Routine maintenance of crankset and crank. The crank needs to be cleaned in time, especially near the bottom bracket. Periodically check whether the mounting screws of the crank are loosened. After riding, the impurities on the crankset should be wiped in time to extend the service life of the crankset and chain. 4. Common crankset problems. 1. What is BCD? The holes on the spider arms used for attaching a chain ring can have a variety of spacings, referred to as the bolt circle diameter, commonly abbreviated as BCD. The replacement crankset must have the same BCD as the crankset and have the same bolt locations. The BCD of a given crankset generally sets the number of compatible teeth for the crankset. Generally, a 130 mm BCD crank is at least compatible with a crankset of 38 teeth, and a 110 mm BCD crank is at least compatible with a crankset of 33 teeth. However, the Shimano road crankset has changed this situation. All crankset sizes use 110 mm BCD, giving users the option to increase or decrease the crankset size without changing the crankset. 2. The impact of the crankset on riding. The effect of the gear ratio is that the more teeth, the faster the speed. For example, the standards for racing bikes are 54 teeth and 53 teeth. Climbing and endurance road bikes are 50 teeth. Gravel road bikes focus on the ability to pass through bumpy terrain, so the teeth number is smaller, with 42 teeth or 46 teeth. The hollow crank and the carbon crank are lighter and have higher rigidity. They can generate force more directly and improve the pedaling efficiency. 3. What is a hollow crank? What are the advantages? The hollow in the hollow crank refers not to the bottom bracket but to the crank legs. The hollow crank is lighter. The main advantage is that the inner and outer sides of the crank have a similar structure, which means it is less likely to deform when pedaling. It has better rigidity and force transmission, which not only reduces the rotational weight but also helps accelerate. Thanks for watching. Don't hesitate to leave a message if you have anything to share. We are looking forward to your idea and story.